Here then. My hand.
That's it.
My face.
Get back into bed, it's very late.
Ow.
Alright.
My mouth.
Get to sleep. Right. First night, I'm very cramped here in the Moulton, at the Moulton weekend. For Alex Moulton's 80th birthday. It's very cramped. Right, and poor Rosie's fast asleep already. Right. Hello, camper.
Get your sausages out.
Yeah. Going on in there.
Come across your kettle yet?
Hey?
Come across your kettle yet?
Yeah, it should be in my...
Oh, God, shotgun. And the boy got a shotgun and killed all the zombies by shooting them all in the brain. Amanda? Black blood orange. They're done.
Morning, campers.
Morning, campers. Oh, look, crack the lanes.
Hello, Rosie.
I can't hear.
I'm going to. Rosie. Right. There's the campsite as it stands.
The other bit about modifying seeds so you can't actually collect seeds from your existing crop.
A grey, misty morning. Our tent.
Production has got something to do with forcing people to buy product.
These two farmers down my road use the BoA system and crop a certain amount of their own seed.
I stayed there twice.
Alright. Hello. And here we are.
Good morning.
What have you to say then, Mr. Forey?
Oh, the sun's just
Just
starting to break through.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
After a sort of damp arrival last night. Drizzle.
Dog, no shop there.
Oh, that dog's barking, is it?
Yeah. This dog's in his cage. And the thing that Joe lost is shades. We keep going to see them and I keep digging. There's one dog barking like this. Does he get?
Stand down the door and see if they let him out later. They'll come straight for you.
We have our own. Get my jumper. You have to. You have to. You have to.
Spending a lot of money because the whole thing starts to do that. And I think that works is that somebody very close
You ain't
got your elastic band going.
Yeah, the old elastic band's going. This is a new feature. See around here.
Found out what the slugs like to eat.
What's that?
Your Pringles. One down there gobbling away. One down there.
Really?
Yeah, look.
Where's that?
It's eating it. It's been there for about a quarter hour now. That one there. Look.
Oh yeah. Oh, slug.
It's one of them Pringles, you know them Pringles?
Yeah.
Crisps.
Good grief, look at that. Jumping away.
Got a taste for them, haven't they?
Mm. This is a new feature in here. Looks like some sort of drainage pit. Again, it's full of slugs around here to watch you don't slip on them. But look at that. Amazing. Wasn't here last year. Looks like it's been here for years though. Incredible. And here we are.
Moulton City, isn't it? I've never seen one until I come up here.
Some really old bikes. It's a nice Mark III. It's a nice one, Andy, isn't it?
I draw by myself.
That was pretty scary. I saw it in my rearview mirror, you know, in this car like that. Outrageous. It wasn't your fault, it was his.
We nearly got hit by a school bus on the way. School bus? Yeah, it's small. There was different lanes of traffic and he was going, well, this school bus was going like this all over.
It's alright. Rosie. You be careful now.
Can you see him on my right?
Much darling.
Whatever you can do, stop it.
Yeah.
Come on.
You're supposed to say over. Over.
Why don't you catch a fly?
Over.
Under. Hello.
Help. Be careful, be careful. Let go, because I said, Dominic, I said let
It is a leaf!
God, don't put...
Yeah.
Film the fish.
Fish? Can't see any fish in there. Rose, you stay there. George, get off the wall, please. Off the wall.
Dad, come up on the bridge and then you'll be able to
Yeah,
see.
no, leave the fish alone.
How much do you think one of those cost?
100.
Because they're so small. Ryan, I just saw somebody Dad.
Yeah.
want to see my stickers? I've got 3 packs of Birkin stickers.
There's the famous Jim Glover, just about catch his sunglasses. Yeah, we will be. Oh, there he is. There's the new man. Fastest Moulton alive. 52 miles an hour on the flat.
Round the outside here. Thank you.
And Steve inspecting his new frame.
Curious.
Well, new, old frame.
Yeah. They came out of the factory like this.
Don't think so.
Got on his coat and then Vicky, no difference yet. With Alex.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Moultons, there's only... I don't know what it's 17-inch wheels, but I've just got this time. If you've got no suspension, I mean, you've got this. I think that's the great thing about tyres, that you can get some really high-tech tyres like these Primos, turtle fade from them, and you can put them on a really old bike and transform the performance of it. You know, an early Series 1 with a pair of really
smooth and there's no rolling resistance with it. A friend of mine's got Primos and they, as you say, it transforms the ride.
It does. And for me, it reveals what a great bike the Series 1 is. You know, it reveals its full performance, its potential.
It's a much better bike than the other ones that followed it. I mean, Mark 2s and 3s.
Well, indeed, yeah. Oh, I love the early ones. I think they got it right at the beginning, you know. And you know, yeah.
You right, Rosie? Hello. Rosie. Oh, darling. I can't pick you up because I'm filming at the moment. You be very careful there. Where's his carp then? I can't see him.
He's out there somewhere. Where these bubbles are going, I can't
Oh my god, what's this?
Yeah, there's one there.
It's a wet one, I think.
It's a dry one. Now it's
George,
a wet one.
that is not a good thing to do.
Now it's a wet one. Put it in the water. No. Alcohol. Look. Now it's a wet one.
You have to focus it on the cart. Where is it?
I can't see him.
There's one in the
There.
distance.
I can't see though.
Look over there though. See, there's a cart there.
Apparently there's some carp. I can't see any.
Look at the one. It's splattered.
There, it's coming towards us. Look. There.
Yeah, I see it.
That is a cart.
No, I see it, Gemma.
Big one.
Oh yes, I see it there.
Oh no, watch it.
It's
Just gobbled it up.
Oh George, don't be silly.
Come on, get that one.
Oh no, somebody's eating it. Look, somebody's eating it.
Throw it. Kill this bloody handle. It's already dead.
Yeah, I read it till all the pages fell out, actually.
Yeah, that's replaceable. That won't that start with?
Yeah, this camera's all automatic, so it should.
Absolute bedlam has taken place in the bouncy castle. Hey, don't pull it down.
We need a post or something to keep it up.
You want to go on, Rose? We'll get the violent for you. I'll hold it. Yeah. Rose, come on, darling. You want to go up? One hand.
Listen, everybody, a little one coming, so
Yeah.
just be very careful with this one, alright?
Come on, Rose.
No, please.
It's tipped over. Let's go.
Everybody get to the corner! Yeah, get to the corner! No thanks! Yeah! We're sinking! Oh my god! I'll pick it up from down there. I'm sinking! It's sinking though! Yeah!
Oh.
Stop!
Is it? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Let's take it down again.
What's that?
The ball.
Where's that then?
Downstairs. Sorry, down outside the, yeah, in the middle of the campsite.
Oh, right.
There the others on now. Go on, let 'em on. Yeah, go on.
Just be careful.
Be
around
careful.
the little one. Come up and stay on.
So shy, mate. Rosie! Have a look at this. This is there's a bit of Alex's house there. Look at that. Right up to breeding age. See you? I'll get you out. I'll get you, Dolly. Hey? Can you get in? Have a go, see if you can. Where's Rosie gone? Where's Rosie gone?
Common in the old pipes, not in the modern five-star sprinter. You can't do this. You're driven back to try and get it 2 cogs on like this.
He's come and talked to him and wondered why they've done it. The intention was anything over an MT.
Relatively simple.
Rosie.
Is that good?
You gonna get in as well, Gemma?
Huh?
You gonna get in as well?
You know shoes?
No, you have to take your shoes off.
Oh, should I go in?
You have to take your shoes off.
Are you coming in? Yeah. How do we get in? You missed it. Hello, Rose. Hello. Hello. No, wait. Just gonna get out now and go to her dad. Wait, I know what to do. Wait, dig me in. Bury me. She's too scared, aren't you? I'm scared. Look at boy, come on. Someone else. Bury me.
Gemma will look after you, Rose.
Yeah, come on. Bury me. Goodbye. Shh. We've got to hide. Look, it's so weird.
See, you're capturing the excitement there.
There's nobody in there, Rose. Is there anybody in there? There's nobody in there. Rosie, is anybody in there now? I don't think there is there? Ah!
I just slept. Yeah. No way.
We're deep in it. You stand.
No. Are you going to get in then?
Who's that?
There's nobody else there.
I'm not doing
Here's the tent where the master classes are being held.
No, I can't do it. Gemma, just try and jump over that.
Just take 11 and 12. So what you do is you buy sprocket sets that have got 11 to 24. So that means
No!
11 to 12, that's going
We used to build all the 60s bikes at the top of the board.
Move, back, brake!
Alles neu und einfach auch
Right in this here, I've got a big insulator box. Quite chunky.
Is all right when you're on, when you've got locks?
Yeah.
But when you've got that, is there a taste?
They're very nice. Yeah, the fittings as well are very good. Because we don't get
Well, I don't think that Alex did, because I was cycling along with him. So he had a Jacobean. So you've convinced me still. I think when you recover from 2 years ago. I think it's also actually set up with the straights. It's actually a little nicer now. It's slightly narrower bars. Here rather than still slightly. Unless you've got
This is the front of the house, or the back of the house rather, which I don't often get to see. As you can see, it's rather amazing. There's these cars. This is Dr Moulton's Morris S. Cooper, the original paintwork. And this is a later version. But this is also, I don't know if this is a Cooper. Doesn't look like it. All blue. This is the marquee before the crowds get here. Look at the size of that. And this is the inside. We're getting ready. This is all before the madding crowd. Little exhibition in here. Wide frame is good. All the stuff from the museum. Sectioned exhibit. That's excellent.
This piece this out and all that. But what would be different would be on that white tubing that extends from the bike and which would be a lot of work.
If it's
and then see, the other thing that's not taken care of platform is that the wheel cover.
Models.
so the only rolls for that. So without the wheel, there would be a lot of work.
It doesn't matter where this height ended up at the beginning of the
there was a lot of development for this shape to be a pretty darn good shape. The original pure shape was just longer. And the biggest problem is that because it was longer, it had all that extra side area to push it, right? Theoretically, is this good area?
Yes, I've had it.
So much more stable. Rest of it again, we had some stable jobs.
Although I could, for a large amount of money for that, because it's exactly the same as Chrome.
I've seen this.
Chrome Go, which is exactly the same. And it's in very good order, so I know I could sell it for a lot of money. Moulton AM 785, 350 quid.
get that back so it's easier still. Jubilee, which is solid.
If you want to give me a second.
That's the balance of the...
Fine, yeah, I'll give it to you. Right, yeah. John, no one else allowed in here?
Okay.
Absolutely no one else.
Okay.
Please.
Hello, Clive.
Hello, Steve.
Is Andy with you?
No, he's not.
Oh, yes. But, I don't know.
Engine.
But they've still got some stock, and I think some other source has been discussed. Yeah. Something else I've got, I'm not sure if there's a market. So the new 17-inch cameras. On this one? No, not on these. I mean, but on the AM range.
Yeah,
the new 17-inch.
To be frank, I'm not fully familiar with that.
It's carbon fibre.
Because there's a factory made bust. The roll went bust the whole.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
There was some at the jumble sale. The other sales were then. But they went very quick. They've got a different tread pattern.
Yeah.
But everyone was a bit alarmed when we heard that the doctor had got the moulds back.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But it's actually a new style of tyre for it.
Yeah, there's a new Bridgestone mould. So when is this official? Tonight. So will the photograph go now that to be developed and formed? Oh, yes. So short. As long as it's not flat. The guy here's got his own video. As long as it's
I'm not allowed to show it to anybody. I'm not allowed to show it to anybody until after. I've been sworn.
Yes, you won't go down to the field and say, "Hey guys, look
No,
at
I'm
this."
not allowed to. I've been sworn.
Sorry.
good. Good stuff. Really sorry. No,
I like it better than one other West End put more fingerprints, but they're all two lenses.
They're told no one else is allowed in, so.
Right, I'm going.
What are you for?
I think it's a bit
But I don't know of them all having other replaceable lenses. That's what's good about it, you know. Because they, you know, and they come with a case like this. And all the lenses are already there. What's behind that glass trees, right? Yes. So
It's altering the contrast ranges, isn't
Yeah.
it? And actually making
yeah. And
Another face of the hall that I haven't seen. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, but what? He said to I'll tell him you said that. And I'll give you the big
He's actually a...
My dad would tell me. Oh, sorry. Oh, Lily, good. Good. And one person going on and the dog's noses.
What is that? It's a sleeping Jerry.
Did we do that?
Right, Rose, hang on. I meant you, Steve, actually. I want to get the twins, like brothers in arms.
They're being cruel to Jerry. Brothers in love.
Stick that over your eyes.
Oh, what a terrible sight, look at
When you
that.
go to sleep, it will bring you the leftovers on a plate.
Andy the juggler.
Andy's playing with his balls again.
Yeah, another cunning stunt.
Dropped all three at the same time.
Stunning
You'll say it right, haven't you?
Holly, I'm on your side.
Thank all my help volunteers, many of whom work very hard. There's almost too many names actually to go through them individually. The two I would like to acknowledge perhaps the most are Mike Hessie's on photography, and obviously that will be the most lasting record weekend. John Moulton, whose enthusiasm this year as the new editor, I think is responsible for the massive turnout here, which is almost exactly double last year's seated capacity. And of course, he'll be publishing the photographic record and any other contributions that members might make. So a big hand to John Moulton. I'd also
also like to thank the caterer, perhaps give the caterer a big hand. Tonight has been his last night of a very long week, and I think just give him a big hand and all his helpers. He's put all his marquee up. It's been a 3-week job for him. He's done very well. Finally, I would like to acknowledge Sean Moulton as the organiser of the exhibition which you will view a little bit later this evening. Sean worked extremely hard the week before last. I'm working extremely hard this week in order to do the behind-the-scenes organisation and typing and the rest of it. I'd also like, as part of Sean's team, to acknowledge the massive amount of hard labour put in by the factory on table 13 down the end there. The biggest single stick in terms of moving stuff around. They've all helped out in cleaning and preparing stuff over the last few months. Tim Bigwood helped me, of course, prepare the 2 examples being launched tonight, one here and one will be in the exhibition back. Really, it just leaves me to spell out the order of the remaining events. Ainsley will say a few words on behalf of the club. Tony Hadland will then give a short viewpoint presentation on the lineage of the Moulton frame development from 1960. That will lead into Alex Moulton launching his new bicycle, which is a wonder to behold. And then, along the lines of last year's new series presentation, Tony and Alex will have a sort of question and answer session to better describe and explain the salient points of the new bicycle, which, as perhaps many journalists who don't know about these things will say, looks just the same as all the others. What's different? And Tony will make quite clear what is different, along with Alex. Really, then it's over to Alex to say his bit and open his engineering exhibition, which will be behind where Tony is standing now. And after that you will be free to view the engineering exhibition as the event runs to a close around about 11:30, or as long as people like myself will probably stay awake. Okay, I'll hand it over to Ainsley Brown now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the club, I'd like to welcome you all to this year's unique event. We are celebrating the first club meeting of the new century, Alex Moulton's 80th year, and the 20th anniversary of the founding of Moulton Preservation by Michael Wolff. Thank you very much, Alex, for inviting us to the hall and the grounds. I'm sure you're all enjoying this event very much. The turn of the century seems to have brought with it a greater optimism and confidence within the club. Last year at this event, I reflected on the difficulty of finding new members to serve on the committee. This year we welcomed a new lead editor and 2 membership secretaries. John Auckland has built on Nigel Sadler's and previous editor's solid foundations and moved the magazine to new levels of excellence. Dennis and Stephanie Duggan have taken on the membership secretariat and are working with Mike Hesse to develop a better electronic database to give us more information. This year we decided to ask our members a few questions about the club and to find the best way of increasing membership, which currently stands at about 900. The United States has about a representation of 5%, Europe 7.5%, and just under 3% in Japan, Australia and New Zealand. Steve Andrews organised this survey and has this week presented the results. He has proposed a basis of a plan of action for the future. I'd like to thank all the club officers for their input this year, particularly
Ian Hodgson and Mike Wolf for their guiding hand through recent choppy waters. Thank you also to Sean Moulton, Jim Stembridge, Jim Hunter, and all the others for organising and helping the event. Earlier today, you may have noticed several colourful do's and don'ts posters for the children put up around the ground. These were jointly planned and created by two of the younger members of the club, Holly West and my daughter Joy, both aged 11. So a new generation is taking an interest in the club. This year, with the opening and hasty closing of the Millennium Footbridge across the Thames, we have been shown how difficult it can be to master the technology of suspension. This weekend, with this exhibition, we see how Alex Moulton has made continual improvements in this complex subject. His automotive suspensions have worked for millions of people over the past 30 years. His bicycle suspensions have evolved in the same time span as the intriguing and satisfying creations they are today. I'll now hand you over to Tony Hadland, who will give us a brief resume of the development of the Moulton Bicycle. Tony.
Thank you very much, Ainsley. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your patience. Jim is going to operate the slide machine here. It's a very short presentation, but it's just a little reminder to us all of the evolution of this most amazing machine. And before I get into that, while he's just sort of focusing up, I would like to pass on, Alex, some good wishes which have come from some of your old friends who can't be here tonight. Ron Beams, who's arguably our oldest member at 94, is in hospital at the moment, recovering nicely from an operation, but he and his friend Roger Taylor sent their regards to you and best wishes, and to everybody else in the club. Also, I was speaking the other day on the telephone to John Woodburn, and he also sends his best wishes as well. So that's quite a nice little reminder from the past. This presentation we're going through pretty rapidly here because we are a little bit behind time, is a result really of some work that Jim and I did about a year ago. We discovered that we'd been working 100 yards from each other for about 5 years, and now neither of us works in the same area, but we got together and we started to put together a sort of family tree of the evolution of Moulton frames. Now that would be too complicated to show here. Maybe sometime I'll put it on the website. But it sort of follows on from my interest in family history. It follows that sort of precept through. But we're just going to do a very quick rattle through of some of the key points of frame design. And this is only of the bicycles that have actually gone into serious production and have reached the market, not the very many things that Alex has tried over the years. So let's go to the first one now, Jim. And that is, of course, the very familiar Series 1 F-frame from 1963. I hope most people can see it. I know it's a little bit difficult, and I've got a rather short cable here around the leg of the table, but 1963 Series 1 F-frame, characterised by the tapered seat tube, head tube and forks, and the oval section main beam. You can see the little sketch there of the oval section, and with the frame joints riveted and brazed, riveted to hold them together for the brazing process. Very satisfactory design, which has a lot to commend it, and has been followed through and may yet come through in other designs in the future, who knows. Right, on to the next one, which is a development of that, a further refinement, going back to what Ainsley was saying, continuous refinement. The Series 2 F-frame, very much as the Series 1, but with pressed forks. This photograph actually is quite difficult to find a good photograph of a total Series 2. This one from a rally period catalogue. The pressed rear forks, the front forks actually on this machine, although the rest of it is pure Series 2, are in fact Series 1. But you've got the edge brazed joints rather than the riveted, brazed on carrier stays there and the carrier beam junctions. And then of course after that the Mark III, which was broadly similar but with the triangulated rear suspension. And on to the next, which is again an F-frame, but this is the rationalised F-frame as I would call it. Very much as a Series 2, but with parallel-sided head and seat tubes. The taper has gone, and that, of course, was first seen in the Mini and seen in volume in the Mini, but gets its finest interpretation in the 1967 S-Speed, which in many ways was a lightweight version of the Mini frame, made in 531, clapper box rear suspension, the press-type fork configuration, And at that stage, we really reached the end, perhaps, of that particular series of F-frames. Then we go on to the next slide with a step development into the space frame. The original 1983 production space frame, parallel-sided head and seat tubes again, triangulated rear suspension coming through from, as first seen on the Mark III, the leading link front suspension, completely different, and the space frame, of course, crucially very different from the F-frame, cruciform space frame, a cross-shaped space frame, the two girders crossed over and with the tie beam beneath. Then further refinement, again following that theme of continuous development, the thinner tube space frame bicycles, smaller diameter tubes, derived really from the 1989 speed, and lower steering head to allow for the wishbone handlebar stems as introduced in the Jubilee in 1987. And these, of course, constructed in 531 or in stainless steel bikes coming out in 1991. We then come almost up to date, or up to date until hitherto, with the new series, 1998, with the Flexitor front suspension, again a significant progression there, completely different rear suspension element, the hydroelastic rear suspension, and the unified rear triangle with the bottom bracket integral with the rear triangle. And also the facility of packing smaller by taking into smaller elements, instead of just having the single brake in the frame. Well, that pretty much brings us up to date, but Alex, I think you can take this progression a little bit further. So may I invite you now to join us and reveal perhaps the next stage in the evolution of the Moulton bicycle frame.
Very nice we had this great gathering. It celebrates the impetus of it. 80th birthday 4 months ago on the other. One thing about being 80 is that you look around and everybody else is a year older. Except children we haven't seen, but maybe 2 years older. He hadn't seen before. But by and large, everybody gets progressively old. And it's good to be alive at 80. So fair thing for that. And there's a nice, we've had an art exhibition, which you'll go and see shortly, a number of visitors. And the thank you was this thing. They're the Cross family, were local engineers, and they write this. Dear Alex, we feel at a loss to know how to put words across. So a poem we'll start to say thanks from the heart of cross, cross, cross and cross. They're about that number. The godly little buffet treat, an organised day hard to beat. We remember the date that we help celebrate the delights of an engineer's feat. We're proud to be part of your day, and we hope in these words we can say it's been a delight to be at the site where history has been on display. So that's the remark of the exhibition. Now, the purpose of the exhibition, is really to make a collection of my life's work in engineering. It's mostly innovation, and in that may I make immediately thanks and respect and thanks to those that have helped me in my life, some of whom, the latter here at right, are situated on that table down there. And I was very pleased, what I call the overall ones, and I was very pleased only today to hear two of them saying it's satisfactory, you know, to make something that we can be proud of.
And that's a very nice thing, and thank you, you boys, I'm sure you're down there, thank you for your help. And that very much includes a recent, what I call blue overall, in Jim Stembridge, who's been talking to and arranging this thing earlier on, and he's been a great help to me. He's only been here half a year, but in that he's been a great help to us all. So thank you, Jim, for that. Now, the objective of the Making collection is really to consider it becoming the collection going to a museum. And the hope is that nice old building, which is on the other side of the mill stream, which used to be the carpenter's shop, the estate carpenter's shop, and myself as a child had great happy memories working there, being shown how to use tools by the carpenter Cooper. So the hope is to use that building for the establishment of the museum. And the purpose of the museum, on the one hand, is obviously retrospection. From the historical point of view, it's valuable to look whence we came. But more importantly, it's meant to be the background of, to encourage younger people to go into this fascinating thing which I spent my life on, still doing, on engineering, particularly innovative engineering. And they may be, the hope is that if they see, future generation, if they see, well, this is how one man in his life has done so and so and so and so, by analogy, we may be able to do the same. And I'm forming a charitable trust in which we will endeavour to instruct the creative process, as far as it can be, which I may say is very different to what the normal thing is. The normal thing is, we can't do this, we haven't got a computer program, let's have a meeting. And then after having a meeting, let's have a planning meeting and so on. So that's a normal thing, and then let's give it all up and go do what I call doing a .com. So my attitude is completely different. I do believe that there will be youngsters. One of these, sitting down here, he may looking and smiling, he may, when he's put 20 years on it, himself, may say that he wants to learn engineering and the enormous attraction of that activity. And I would say at that point, I deplore, of course, what's happened in this country. I'm ashamed almost of it, the way we've discarded our industry. And I very much applaud the attitudes of, we've got a nice table of Japanese here, Japanese engineers and people here, and I have a great satisfaction in working with a distinguished Japanese firm and learning a bit about how their attitude is towards engineering. And it is still very refreshing. It was like we were not all that long ago. And Ken Spacey, who was a colleague of mine in the Midlands 20 or 30 years ago at Reynolds, he reminds me of how we were. And certainly I don't believe that we shall not go back to making something. I think it's too much indigenous in mankind. Japanese give us an example. Also over there, I think Holger from Germany, his country is extremely strong industrially. We know we don't necessarily like some of the industrial invasions into this country. That is only due, it's only a reflection on how feeble we are. I commend actually the vigour of the Germans in pushing forward their industry. I'm envious of it. I simply despise our nation, the present people in charge, who simply go for the short-term monetary advantage. I absolutely despise it. And now, as the United States, of course they can do both. I mean, they can .com and they can do anything they like. They can have odds on presidents, but they're so strong. They're so strong. It's wonderful. Even I was slightly complaining about Chrysler being run by Daimler Benz. But by and large, you can laugh it off. And certainly, I know when a very stupid Englishman called Goldsmith presumed to take over Goodyear, he was in a typical little money-seeking creature, thought he could get control of Goodyear. I'm talking about 10 years ago, and they were put in the end. He was made to run by the old people, Akron or whatever, simply wouldn't have it. Now, in this country, because we behave in this idiotic way now, we will allow Rolls-Royce, Bentley to be given away. And there's not the tiniest bit of compunction in this government to that, and nor the preceding government. So I'm hoping that the example, in a tiny, tiny way, what can be done, which we'll see in there, will inspire a few of these boys down and to make something.
When are you running for Prime Minister?
Very nice. So that's the point of the exhibition.
Don't forget the girls.
Yes, very much. Now, you're quite right. There's more chance there. We had a good example in Margaret Thatcher, didn't we? Okay, so you'll find in the exhibition two streams there: the automotive suspension, of which the examples are suspensions on the cars outside, and the other one, of course, of the bicycles. Now, how would you like? The intention is that we talk about this bicycle now. Is that the idea? And it'd be nice to have its mate. In other words, it's highly tooled, and Timmy Bigwood, who I think sticking down there, has done a wonderful job on design and making the tools. But as the time was pressing, we've only just got into the use of them, and we have in fact only 3 of these new machines available. It'd be nice to have the one is hanging up, which you'll see we won't disturb, but there is another one. So I think it'd be nice. Have you got the other one? Lovely. So, right, good. So, yes. So that's the new series speed. So you'll be able to come and see that one, and then when you get to the exhibition, you'll see the third one. So it is really from your attorney description of the evolution frame. Of course, it's as all my things are evolutionary, although they take some jump changes. Going to the space frame, of course, the jump change. And this is singularly satisfying for me, because it is the last bit of full triangulation. In other words, there isn't a big tube there. And that the present particular feature that you'll notice is the pylon for the seat tube. And you'll notice also we've integrated in the rear suspension the flexitors, the dorsal shear springs at the front, and you'll note, particularly Ken Sprayson may be interested to note, the angle of the linkage are very particular, and that is which I don't think was ever done in motorcycles. It meant anti-dive. In other words, when you put the front brake on, it doesn't dive much, which of course on the telescopic it does. So that's that feature, which is carry over from the new series. And then another new feature here, which I'm very, very pleased with, is the carbon fiber, Kevlar reinforced carbon fiber blades. Now, I don't like carbon. I don't like anything much than steel. But well, at least I'm brought up on that. But the aluminium is all right if you weld it. But the carbon fiber, I'm very suspicious of. But I've used it there in a very specific way. It's a properly laid up tube, so there's nothing very remarkable about that. And the load goes in at the top axially, and the load comes out of the bottom axially by stainless steel ferrules, and of course they're suspended as well, but essentially the load is in that way, and in the middle they're clamped. So the integrity of the blades is complete. and it's Kevlar, they're Kevlar lined so that they're good in impact. So that's really, it's a 3-part separation. You note the convenient separation in the middle is deleted. It's a more complicated separation, but it's in 3 parts, it's very small. And I'm told that this may or may not be true, but at the end, you know that rear engine or the center engine cars have a very tiny boot with a very ridiculous layout, but used for sports cars. And I was told today that the Brompton won't go into the boot of an MGF, but that thing does. So whether it's true or not, I don't know, but certainly that thing does go in with its outside. So that's really the summary of it. It's extremely light. I mean, we've gone down to 20 pounds for a full suspended bicycle, full-size bicycle. And you'll see there's one version, which is that one, where we've yielded to the old-fashioned idea of having dropped handlebars and the old-fashioned idea of having a gear shift on your hand, 2 gear shift, and the old-fashioned idea of having a double chainring. I mean, all that's my way of thinking, unless you're racing, out of date. And as you're not allowed to race this bicycle, you're meant to go very fast and faster than you can on a racing bicycle. But nevertheless, there's a demand from the market for those, so it's in that way. But that one's a prototype, and it's really my preference. It's got the mosquito handlebars, which are a completely rational way of doing it, a single chain wheel, a gear shift which you can see where it goes, and simply, if you get stronger, if you're younger, you can put a larger chain wheel on in the summer, and if you get older, you can put a smaller chain wheel on. But don't care about all that double stuff. But if people want it, there it is. So that's it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alex. I ask you just a few questions to develop further? The idea of the pylon, I remember coming across, I think it was on a Saturday in February 1978. You were having your breakfast and looking at the FT, and you did some jottings on there, and I think we have a picture of that in the space frame Moultons. And what you then sketched out was a conventional seat tube from the bottom bracket up to the centre line here, and then a wigwam, I think was the term you used, on the top. And that was, I don't know, 22 years ago. And I believe since then you've made quite a few different stabs at this, or different experimental approaches. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes, I would. My ambition, of course, was to make it lighter, stiffer. And one had to always check whether the alternative, the natural alternative is to just do the laser thing, the single tube. Is a single tube of whatever diameter lighter, stiffer than the obverse of that, which is a fully triangulated small tube? And that's my agony that I've been through all the time. And what one does, you do it bit by bit. What you say that I was fearful about getting from, if you like, the deck down to the bottom bracket, and therefore it was a single tube. And we've tried all these things, and this thing has been very much, we've done a theoretical analysis, and part of the educational thing that I'm very keen to do are publishing the calculational basics on all this thing, that one proceeds in engineering innovation in a sensible way. First of all, the idea which is in the mind, which may be driven a bit by an aesthetic thing. Then you proceed to check something as to whether it is crazy, numerically, and then you make something and test it. That's the iterative process of engineering, which incidentally, of course, you talk about that bridge. Incidentally, that's a wonderful example of how you don't proceed. I mean, it's an idiotic thing. I mean, it's simply, I'm talking about the wobbly bridge. That it was exactly how you don't proceed. It was exclaimed along with a tent. I think the tent's all right, the content is rubbish, but the actual tent's the bridge was simply a styling feature to the light, the blade of light going across the road. But it's not a bad idea if you have a long beam, you want some stiffness in it. And they didn't do, and I'm, oddly enough, I'm the young man who's a rather leading hand in the Arab. I'm going to see him on Tuesday because when he made, or they made, this ghastly mistake, and they're in some basic trouble with it because it's a fundamental wrong design, and therefore there are to get out of it is quite difficult. And we're going up on Tuesday to see him because I think we might be able to help by some of the hydroelastic type dampers on it. In other words, try to save it by damping it. But that's an example of how you should not proceed. It was done by styling first, not doing the fundamentals, doing first order fundamental simply with the wind. They didn't say, well, if you make something of very low frequency, because it's so shallow, worry about kiddywinks or anybody trying to make things move. That's exactly what people do.
The wrong kind of walking.
Yeah, the wrong kind of walking. Yes, and it's actually very difficult to walk because there's a model made at Cambridge, which I was in the structures lab, which I was there recently. We had a booth. Sean and I were there showing off our bicycle. And next door, there was a demonstration of a section of the bridge. And with people walking on it, it's very easy to get it going. If you have the natural frequency low enough, it's jolly difficult to do other than get into rhythm with it. Now, you can imagine, and I wrote it by this young man, I said, my God, you've got to make a good solution of this if you've got in this trouble, and don't take any notice of politics, just simply get the thing right. Because sooner or later, it'll become the joke that you'll go out, kids or any age will go out on that bridge and say, come on, let's get it going. Because it's very difficult not to get it going. So they've got a real problem, and it comes from styling first and not engineering first. That thing is engineering, and also looks right good.
So another effect here is that you now have a standard seat pillar here,
yes.
27mm or thereabouts?
I think a standard size.
Yes, indeed. So that gives the customer choice on the length and material used there. If we can turn to the rear triangle then now, Alex, the hydroelastic element here looks a little bit different to the last one. What's happened there?
Simply productionized. We've unified on the earlier, a couple of years ago, it was screwed together, and now we've unified it, and it's turned over. So it's simply, the principle is the same. The spring is rubber, the damping is fluid, and there's a little bit of air at the back of the thing to recoil stroke, and we fixed the hole. You know, I remember one of the Jaguar engineers, Jim Randall, said, when the same number of people complain about our damping on our cars being too stiff as those that complain about it being too loose, we know we've got it about right. So therefore, what we've done is to select a sensible given size orifice, so the damping is constant.
Right. And also it's a little bit lighter?
Yes, everything is driven by lightness, provided, but always under the consideration of strength. And this damn thing, we've done the most brutal tests on it. Absolutely brutal tests on it, so everything's been hammered to pieces.
So the unified rear triangle continues with the bottom bracket integral, but something else happens down here, doesn't it?
Quite right. That one appreciates that the rear triangle, or any rear triangle, that's how they're suspended like, pivots. And it has, on the earlier ones, has a bronze bearing. And I've always been keen on eliminating any wearing points, and also that they can develop backlash. And also, so I've at last done a torsional, rubber torsion bush of very particular proportions, which means that the rubber is very thin, and therefore it's extremely stiff in every mode except the up and down. And what it does, which is very strange, and whether it is that or the pylon, the thing is much quieter. It's very, very spooky. That when we first made it, we rode it around the yard, and we said, well, it's quieter. And certainly one must know, there's a strange thing, that bicycles make quite a noise. And I found that out, ordinary bicycle, many years ago, when I was giving a lecture at the Royal Institution, and I wanted to make a contrast between the noise in London of horses, horse traffic, motor traffic obviously, and pedestrians, and also bicycles. I was trying to make the point that bicycles are very quiet. But actually, so we had these tests done, and it's surprising how noisy the bicycles are.
But what you've done is the equivalent in a broadcasting studio of suspending the floor away from the building.
It could well
Or
be.
even in
Yes.
concert halls sometimes
Yes.
it's mounted on
Yes.
rubber springs.
Yes.
The
But
Birmingham one,
it's
for
certainly
example.
very interesting that that bicycle is not only silkier to feel, but also it's quieter.
And the dimensions must be very critical there, because I would think that if you did it in a very crude, unthinking way, you could end up with a fishtailing effect.
Absolutely, we're fighting. Ken Sprayson from Moulton Bicycle, you know all about fishtailing. We fought that very much, and Doug Milliken has been, and certainly he's been trying that, has tried that, and I think we've got it all right. I mean, the frequency is very high, it's very stiff. But I've got another. If it went, I could do something about it. But I think it's all right. Jim Glover, who's here from Canada, will be very much standing by his race record bike, an enormously strong rider. I can see his legs here already. He will try that from the bike tomorrow, and I think it's all right in that way. But your point is quite correct. But if it isn't, we can do something.
Right, thank you very much. At that point, with the mention of Jim, I'd just like to salute Jim, because I've never got over the fact that he can do 140 cadence on his machine. And this is the man who did the 51 mile an hour plus at the Moulton.
Yes.
Let's hear it! Alex, while we're at that, this general area around the suspension, I notice that you have an unusual front derailleur mechanism here. This is like something I've never seen before, and I don't suppose Frank Berto has either. Would you like to say a little bit about that?
When we were forced by market pressure, which I don't very much like, but when BoA yielded to market pressure, so to say that, to have a double chain rig, we've got a problem because the blasted, the ordinary front chain is in the wrong place. So therefore we prototyped what to do. And we made a prototype, which I think is not on that one, which is rather ugly and heavy. But between us, that was Tim and Jim and myself, had a go at making a different one. And what I said was, get hold of Frank Berto's book, The Dancing Chain, and go through all the different ways that this thing has been done. And this one is inspired by one of those, isn't it? Is it a cycler? Simplex, it is. But it's been very nicely executed. It was made, a prototype was made by Tim down there, and nicely drawn and put properly to proportion by Jim here. And I think it's right. So it's very nicely done. If you have to have a front changer, there it is.
Excellent. On the subject of Frank Berto, Kaz and I recently were at a conference which he presided over, and he had his U Series Edge, didn't he? He was really quite enthusiastic about the U Series as a bicycle. Yeah.
Frank Berto.
Yes, yes.
That was in Japan recently, I think, wasn't it?
That's right, yes, yes. If we move round to the front end then, we've got the carbon fibre. Now, you've always been very distrustful of carbon fibre. I can remember your comment, one particular comment where you had a carbon fibre chain guard, and you said that that's an appropriate use for carbon fibre. And, but, I mean, the thing that you've always been concerned about is a sort of catastrophic failure mode, isn't it? That when it goes, it just goes bang, and something like front forks you don't want going just bang. But I gather from the testing that's gone on that this is actually stronger than the steel equivalent. Is that right, Jim? Sorry, Alex.
Well, all right. We'll put either Tim down there or Jim here. I think the tests satisfactorily indicate that.
Yes, the basic static loading, we simply put the forks out on the table, clamp them down. We statically load them with weights. I did this blind with knowledge of what the 531 forks.
We can't hear you. Where's the mic?
What the 531 forks are capable of. And I loaded up with Tim Bigwood assisting, because he's obviously done all these tests before and knows exactly which clamp to use in which situations are. And he said, good God, he says, we've now exceeded the load at which the 531 would yield and take a permanent set. and we still had a perfectly linear spring, cantilever spring, on the carbon fibre. We went on for another, I think, about 50 pounds, and it still wasn't breaking, and the weights were virtually touching the floor. Alex came in at about 11:30, and I said, well, shall we take it further? And he said, no, put it back on the bicycle and let people ride it. We were all stunned by we failed to break the carbon fibre forks which are on this bicycle now. We had several good attempts on the fatigue rig. We went twice past the British standard fatigue requirement on a number of cycles. We exceeded the static loading at right angles that the 531 would usually yield at, and the thing sprang back. I did eventually manage to break one with the Kevlar underskins, and which is on display in the back of the exhibition tent. And as you can see, although it has produced a knee joint, it fractured and locked, it didn't go any further. It didn't snap off. So we are very satisfied with it.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Thank you.
And the leading links, Alex, I think they've been modified since the original new series as well.
They were steel tubes with braised together, the ends braised on, but they're now in production. They're machined from solid aluminium.
And finally, I think the lockout, you have the lockout mechanism, that's a little bit different as well, isn't it?
And what we're trying to do, I think it's on that one, isn't it? I think it's on that one, yes. That we're trying to make it adjustable. The lockout, people sometimes dislike the idea of the front suspension being moved by violent riding. So we give the opportunity of a soft lockout, which you can adjust according to your weight, and so the stroke up and down of what you allow can be adjusted very accurately. I mean, normally one uses it completely open, but you have got for a violent rider, you have got the facility of a soft lockout.
Excellent, thank you very much indeed. Are there, would you want to take any questions from the floor at this stage?
Yes, just for a moment, not bad, century box now, yes.
Okay, has anybody any question they'd like to raise? There's a young gentleman there with a question. It's a good question. Anybody else? Lost for words. Okay, well thank you very much for that, Alex. And let's show our appreciation, please.
Thing with that, we get preoccupied with this because of new toys as it were, but don't forget, and I certainly don't forget, all the earlier machines that are still in use. I'm always deeply impressed by the number of the first series, early series that appear, and it gives me as much satisfaction to see the longevity of those and the pleasure that it's giving still of these old machines. And one point that I'd like to read out of the Fellowship of FOC, Fellowship News, there was an advertisement. They're not normally advertising, but this is for a 1965 Moulton Standard. Alloy rims, so it's got rather up to spec. Primo tires, wide over brakes, Brooks broken saddles, strong nice tension, so. Sturmy arch fall with two sprockets. Presumably the Moulton Standard 65 would have been 3-speed, is that right? I've forgotten. 4-speed. So they would have been 4-speed? Yeah. Fine. So there it's likely to have to be a standard 4. Rear rack and so on. It's original, this is a nice thing, original light grey paint, scuffed a bit but still looks good. And a nice touring bike. 275 pounds. Now, that gives me deep satisfaction. Here's a man, it's not 275. Now, it cost new, what John Benjamin, would it have been the $29.95? So it cost $29.95, and it's now being offered to 275 pounds. And so that's a rather nice thing. And the fact that the man said, all right, the paint's gone a bit, but a nice touring bike.
Alex, Alex, you've presented something very nice to us, and thank you also for your presentation verbally. But we now would like to present something to you, and this is coming to you from your friends, from your staff, and from the members of the Moulton Bicycle Club. So it should be appearing very shortly. It's just a little token of our appreciation and esteem, and it's something which we hope and sincerely think you will enjoy. Right, this is over to you now, Alex. And for all your achievements, Alex. We hope it gives you a great deal of pleasure. For those who can't see it, that routed into the back of the chair is a new series in relief.
Turn it round.
Turn it round.
Slightly heavier than the new series.
That is from your own wood. Very briefly, the wood that was used for the bench is oak, oddly enough, green oak from Alex's own wood on the estate.
The most super charming choice, executed beautifully. And it's a fine, noble thing which will go into the new Japanese garden. You know that we're making a Japanese garden inspired by our Japanese friends, and I think it's associated with the new ponds that we discovered, which you will see, and this, I'm sure, can fit somewhere in that sea, can't it?
Sort of 3 stones that have
Yes.
to be handled.
Yes. Splendid. So, be assured I shan't be sitting there all the time. But it is beautiful. Can you read that out?
Presented to Alex Moulton on 9th of September 2000 by his friends, staff and the Moulton Bicycle